Hello, Varun Bajaj. Welcome to the channel Kahanis Golden Bytes. Thank you for taking out your time to be on the channel, Varun.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Joby. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Varun, once again. So, Varun, for the benefit of our viewers, may I request you to please give a little bit of your background, Varun?
Sure. So my name is Varun Bajaj. I was born and brought up in Delhi, NCR. So school and college was both in Delhi. I'm actually trained as an architect. I have a license as well, but I didn't practice much. So after a few years of working at an architect's office, I decided to switch over towards real estate. And eventually, after sort of studying abroad and living abroad for a few years, I came back. And currently, I describe myself as an architect turned entrepreneur because what takes up more of my time is actually running a business. And I have a keen interest in travel and hospitality. So what I do now is I run a company called Ika Travel and Lodging, which aims to manage and run and develop boutique hotels in India, and also curate and organize travel experiences. At the same time, I'm also looking after some real estate investments for my family office. So that's what I do currently.
Lovely. Lovely to hear that, Varun. So, Varun, something that strikes me, and that's one of the topics that I wanted to chat up with you on, is you've studied here in Delhi, and you've gone overseas. So, tell me, what did you study overseas, Varun, if I may just ask?
Sure. So I studied at Columbia University, and the course that I did was called an MS in real estate development. So it's called an MSRED, and it's a one-year intensive program, which it starts in the summer. So it's actually like 3 semesters or 3 trimesters, you could say, and it focuses on primarily real estate finance.
Real estate finance. Okay. So what did you get a chance to do any internship over there or work in any environment within the US while you were there studying?
Yes. So like I said, this was a master's program, so there was a lot more flexibility once you go there. It's not as rigid, and we in fact had modules which allowed us to work outside as well. So maybe once a week during the course, because it was a pretty intense program. So only once or twice a week we could intern, and that would count towards credits as well. So I did work for a developer, a sort of design focused developer in Lower Manhattan in my in my second semester, and in my final semester, I worked for another company which was more on the finance side. And then after that, of course, I also worked in the US for 1 year. I did a job just after my program finished.
So Varun, could you throw, how was working in the US during the time you were there? What was your kind of experience over there? Varun, could you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So, like I said, I went for a program that was primarily focused on real estate, but real estate is really vast. There are many facets to it in terms of types of real estate, of course, but also where you want to be in the chain of things. So do you want to be in the finance side? Do you want to be in the development side, construction side, policy side? There's a lot that you can do. And while I was studying, I realized that I was more interested in the hospitality and hotel side of things. So I primarily applied for jobs that were in that space. And I didn't mind being on any of those spectrums when it came to my role. So it could be finance, it could be management, it could be, even project management for a construction company. But I did prefer the finance side. And what I finally got was a role as a finance analyst under the CFO of this company that basically managed around 30 hotels in the US. So for me, it was a big flip from being a junior architect in an office in Delhi to just studying for a year and then suddenly becoming the person under the CFO making reports and Excel, working on Excel all day. So it was a big switch, and I think I learned a lot. And of course, one aspect of it was just the professionalism of things, and just learning how to sort of live by yourself in this big city. I was in Washington DC, by the way, which is like a hub for hotel companies in the US, and just that sheer independence of having that life was one aspect. But then also It was great because it was a very corporate environment, which I wasn't used to at all. So it was nice to be handling a portfolio of 25, 30 hotels rather than, getting into the nitty gritties of each hotel separately, which also we did, but it was a more, outside in kind of view. And now that I've come back here, I get to, really go deep dive into one property. So I think it's great to have that range of experience. And given the fact that I was only there for a year working in that company, I think that was the best experience I could get because in that timeline, you can really sort of grasp how these portfolios are handled. Yeah.
That is fantastic exposure. Yeah.
Yes, excellent. Absolutely.
So Varun, you've studied in the US amongst the best colleges. You've worked in the US, you worked in downtown Manhattan and across the country on projects. And then you decide to come back to India?
Yeah.
Tell me,
I wish.
yeah. Tell me, Varun.
You make it sound like made a really silly
No,
choice
no.
there.
Sorry to push that.
No.
Kind of, yeah, please, your thoughts.
Yeah. So I think there were two factors at play, right? Or rather, two types of factors at play. One was things that were not in my control, and the other were things that I could have control over. So what I didn't have control over was my visa situation. So as many people may relate to, getting an H-1B working visa after your master's degree or even a bachelor's degree is very hard in the US because it's not merit-based. It's completely lottery-based. So that was the primary reason why I had to come back. There were ways around it, but it was not very straightforward. And I think I also missed my family. I had the privilege of coming back. I must say that. I must note that not everyone has a choice. Like some people have taken loans to go there and they must work in the US to, earn that back. But in my case, my family was extremely supportive and I knew that I had a safety net to fall back on. But the second set of reasons, like I said, were to do with what I could do if I came back. And I think it was a very exciting prospect because I realized that I was very interested in like travel and heritage and things that like culture as well, which I feel like India had a lot more to offer in terms of say boutique hospitality, right? And in the US, when I was working there, I was working for a company that was looking at larger hotel chains, sort of more business hotels, that sort of thing. And I couldn't really get that culture box ticked. And I felt like that was something that was missing. And I knew that India had it. India had so much of it. So that was the primary reason why I was excited to come back. And I was okay giving up that life in the US.
So Varun, now that you've come back to India, you're working on various aspects in real estate, on the family office, etc. So what is the latest project or something that you're working on right now? Would you like to share on that? What you
absolutely. So I've been back now for the last, I would say, almost 4 years, and the project that I started on immediately after I came back on was called Amrit Bhawan, which is a boutique hotel in Haridwar by the Ganga, and this is the project that takes up most of my attention and time even today. So the process started back in 2017 when we started looking at ideas of things to do. And this property was already with my family. It was an asset that we had. It's a family vacation home, a second home, whatever you want to call it, except it was in disrepair. It wasn't being used. And we were wondering what to do with it. And we decided to convert it, into something more than what it was. So initially, the idea was just to make it into a reasonably good Airbnb and charge a little bit and, just kind of renovate the place. And then, I don't know, over that 1 year, it just took its own shape, it became something else. And I think a year of planning and then 1.5 years of construction or renovation later, what we have today is a luxury boutique hotel that, has sort of made I would say, a pretty good name for itself in the hotel space in Haridwar. And that's what takes up most of my time because initially it was the construction, the conception of it, and now it's the running of it that we take care of.
So Varun, any pointers in terms of now when you came back to India this time, you were working, you were in business, you were in the thick of it, you weren't studying anymore. Now you worked in a work environment in the US and here now. And you were able to adjust to that rather okay, Varun, between the two environments?
I think it was a big culture shock. Even though, I mean, it sounds kind of pretentious to say that because I was just in the US for 2 years, but really, I think you do get used to the level of professionalism there because everyone is just so professional, so nice. And I say nice, I don't mean that they're always nice to you in the sense that they're being kind to you, but they're polite and everyone respects boundaries and there's, a respect for time, which I think when I came back, I realized, was completely missing. Also, I must say that I came back into a family business environment. I didn't work in a company, in a professional company, so to speak. So I was pretty much my own boss here. But even then, it's a challenge, because even if I don't have someone above me giving me instructions, I have to deal with people outside of the organization to get a project going. And I think it takes a lot of getting used to. And I think where I am today is actually a mix of both. It's a compromise. I mean, in some ways, I've held on to certain values that I learned and picked up during my time in the US. And in some cases, I've just let go and I've sort of adapted to what's acceptable here. And I think it's only evolving. So it's too soon to judge.
So, Varun, could you share a little bit about Amrit Bhawan? What you've done, how did you go about it? What does it stand for? Uh,
Sure. So Amrit Bhavan is a riverside retreat in Haridwar. It's by the Ganga, and it's a small 8-room property. It's very unique in its positioning. It's something that uh, has been adapted from an existing house, which is 50 years old, and we've kept the essence of it, the structure of it, but then we've changed, and added new amenities, etc. So one aspect of it is, of course, the fact that it's a heritage property that we have been able to, bring forth into modern times. But other than that, there's also this layering, right, which is much beyond just architecture or real estate. It's the layering of food, of culture, of experiences, and so that's where I think I want to do things a little differently. This is something that I learned, I think, during my time in the US as well. That it's not just about the asset. It's not just about the room nights or the number of rooms you have, or the price of your room. It's also about how you can make not only revenue but also make a place out of a property using experiences. So it's food is obviously a huge part of it. We focus a lot on Garhwali cuisine, for instance, and then there are experiences that you layer on top. So what are the things that you can do in places around Amrit Bhavan? So there's obviously the traditional things to do in Haridwar, like go for the aarti or eat the chaat and things like that. But then there's so many other experiences that we ourselves keep adding to, such as hikes and walks through the historical neighborhoods and things like that. So, but the point I'm getting at is that we've tried to make it more than just a hotel. It's about the full experience, and that's what we're trying to do with Ikat as a company as well. So hopefully we'll have new properties coming on board, and when we do that, the idea would be to always supplement and support the property with experiences that give you a flavor of the local area. So that's sort of what we've tried to do with Amrit Bhavan, and that's what we hope to do in the future as well.
so, Varun, how can somebody go about booking this? Do you have a website where they come to Amrit Bhavan's website? How do they?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a website which is amritbhavan.in. And maybe we can give a link with this. And we also have presence on social media. We can follow us on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And yeah, it's pretty simple. You just either call us up or you book through the website. And of course, we're happy to answer any questions that people may have.
Lovely. And Varun, if I may ask, where do you see hospitality in India per se? On sitting back 30,000 feet away from what you've seen in the US and how you see it within India. I mean, at this juncture of your life, when you're just starting off into that space, how do you view that, Varun?
So I will say that when I worked in the US, it was a certain type of hospitality that I focused on, because the company that I worked for was a third-party manager for branded hotels only, and they were primarily business hotels. So I saw a very different side of hospitality. But what that taught me was, how to understand the numbers and the financials of how a project works. Um, that said, there's some really interesting work happening in the US and all over the world when it comes to boutique hotels as well. But I feel like what we have in India is special because, for one, we're just very hospitable people by nature. So like there's a it's like a head start. It's like an advantage that you have right from the get go. And of course, we have some of the best hotels in the world in India. There's no doubt about that. So the idea is, how do you take that to smaller properties, not just the brands like Taj and Oberoi, but also smaller individual properties that are very rooted to the place, and where you hire locally, you promote local food. So that sort of detail is only really possible in a rich country like India. Not to say that the US doesn't have that, but it's a very different culture, and I feel like I find this more interesting, and this is where I want to explore further. Yeah.
So Varun, so far, are you happy with the kind of decision you took to, and the plunge you've taken? You seem to be pretty committed to Amrit Bhawan and, the steps that you've taken there. Are you happy the way it's turned out, Varun?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, it's all worked out well. Not to say that I don't have moments of FOMO, the fear of missing out. I see some friends who are still, in the US and doing really well for themselves. I think I have good days and bad days, but overall, I know that what I'm doing here is not something I could have done in the US at all in the same timeline. So I can't say one is better than the other, but this is definitely great, and it's different from what I would have done had I been there. So I'm quite happy with that choice.
Lovely. And Varun, besides the work consuming you, you're also on a visiting faculty somewhere, I believe.
Yeah, so I sort of went back to my alma mater. I studied at the School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi, which is where I did my bachelor's in architecture. I graduated in 2013, and I've kept up with some of the professors. I've always enjoyed academics. I've always enjoyed studying. And during the last 1 year of this pandemic, obviously, I think everyone had a lot more time at hand. And I decided to give that a shot. So in fact, I was teaching a course on real estate. It was called real estate. It's like real estate 101 sort of thing, quantifying design. So the idea was to introduce young architects to the idea of looking at a project more holistically and not just from the point of view of design. And so that's something I did last semester. So it was from September to December, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Varun, thank you so much for your time. Wish you all the best in all your endeavors, Amrit Bhawan, and so much more that's waiting to happen. I'm waiting to see, all the very best from the channel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was really nice talking to you about this.
Thank you, Varun.